The minor league season is starting to wind down here, so it's time to take a look down on the farm. We'll start things off with the Double-A team, the Chattanooga Lookouts, as they're going to be taking on the Mississippi Braves. And getting the start for the Lookouts is the right-hander from LSU in Landon Marceau. Take a look at the Chattanooga lineup on the day as well, listed 1, 2, 9. And we'll start things off in the top half of the first with one out and Adrian Mercer at the dish. He's going to chop one over to second base, and that's going to throw to first, actually going to drag the first baseman off the bag, so Mercer reaches on an error, brings up Austin Hendrick, who hits a line drive into center field. It's going to be caught for the second out, so Mercer now with his fleet feet on first base goes and get himself in a scoring position as he goes and swipes the bag. So an 0-2 count here, and Triana powers the up and in fastball to deep right field, but not deep enough. It's going to be caught, so nothing will happen in the top of the first. But then in the bottom of the first, Landon Marceau had it working. He strikes out Lugbauer to end the inning, and then in the bottom of the second, strikes out Carter to have a scoreless second as well. He had it working early on in this game. So top of the fourth here, Adrian Mercer back at the dish, and he did not miss this one. Absolutely tattoos it over the left center field wall. Adrian Mercer, one of the most interesting prospects we have in our organization right now, hits his fourth home run here at the Double-A level. And we move things on later in the inning. It's Triana going down the right field line. This one's going to hit off the warning track and then off the wall. The big fella's got himself a two-bagger there with one out. Brings up Trey Sweeney, recently acquired from the Yankees at the deadline for Luis Castillo. Hits a ground ball that gets through the infield, and then the big fella himself, Triana, scores from second base to make it a 2-0 lead. But they would cut it in half, the Mississippi Braves, as Grayson Janista hits an absolute moonshot there off the sign in right field. And it cuts the lead in half to 2-1 with Grayson Janista's sixth home run. So now onto the bottom of the fifth, as Marceau would just settle back in. 6-4-3 double play there. 2 down, runner on third. And Marceau would work a scoreless frame as he gets a ground ball to Matt Mcclain at second base, who makes a nice play to fire over to first. We're now on to the bottom half of the sixth, where Lugbauer strikes out again in this game. So another scoreless frame for Marceau. The 2-1 lead is going to be taken into the seventh, where Peyton Battenfield came on for the Lookouts, and he would work himself a 4-6-3 double play there to pick up 2 outs, and then would end the inning as he gets Carter to fly out to left field, where Adrian Mercer was camped under that ball for the final out. So now on to the eighth inning, where Matt Hardy came on with his Wolverine beard for the 41st time this season. And the first batter of the inning absolutely crushes one off that sign in right field again. And it ties the ball game here at 2. 2 solo shots on the day. That was Cade Bunnell of the Mississippi Braves. And then later in the inning, it would be Franklin who's going to single into left field. That would then bring up Janista, who homered earlier in the game. This time he's going to bloop one that lands in a no man's land out there in left center. So back-to-back singles. That would then bring on Ethan Lindau, the lefty here for the Lookouts, to try to get out of this 2-on, 2-out jam, and he would proceed to work a ground ball from Lugbauer to get out of the inning. So the 2-2 tie goes into the bottom of the ninth, where Ethan Lindau was still on the hill, gives up a leadoff single to Tucker as he pokes that into center field. Then it would bring up Tavares, and he's going to poke one into right field, so back-to-back base knocks for the Braves. And then that would end Ethan Lindau's day as the flamethrower himself, Devin Foster, enters the game. First batter up, 98 up and in, blowing the cheese by him. So that's 1 down in the inning. Now, still 2 on, obviously, and then it would be disaster as Cade Bunnell strikes again. He hit the bomb to tie the game, and then he's going to hit a RBI double here to make it a 3-2 lead. And that walks things off as the Mississippi Braves do take the game here at home over the Chattanooga Lookouts by a score of 3-2. Cade Bunnell of the Mississippi Braves was the player of the game. 3 for 4 on the day with a home run and a walk-off double. Adrian Mercer for the Lookouts went 2 for 4 with a home run on the day. And then Landon Marceau did have a good line. Only pitched 6 innings, only gave up 4 hits, struck out 6 batters, and only gave up 1 run on the Grayson Janista solo shot. So now it is time to take a look at some of the players on our AA roster here and go over how they've been doing this season. The first one on the list is David Westbrook. He is a player who will be getting a prospect profile eventually, probably at some point next season if I had to guess. But we are still going to go over him a little bit here. We're just not going to show his ratings. And Westbrook has had a very, very odd season. His OPS is only 708 on the season, but if you really dive into that, I don't understand how that is so, because he has 39 doubles, 30 stolen bases, obviously don't count in OPS, but I mean, he's had a very good season despite having a 708 OPS. He's 39 doubles, 30 stolen bases, 5 triples on the season, led the AA South in total hits, also had the most doubles, the most walks, and the most stolen bases all in AA South. So it's just weird that he led the league in walks and hits and doubles, and he has a 708 OPS with a batting average of 240. Like, it's insane to me that he led the league in hits, but he had a 248 batting average. It's a like I said, I'm having trouble putting it into words. It's just very odd season. But then after him, we have Michael Triana, who, now that I'm looking at his name actually spelled, I think it might even be Michelle, like the guy from Dodgeball, Michelle Triana. Is that what it is? I don't think there was a pronunciation as Baseball Reference. But anyways, Triana, the first baseman in AA, he was one of the best bats in all of AA last season. This year hasn't quite been up to that level. 705 OPS, still 15 home runs and 28 doubles, top 5 in home runs in the AA South, also the most runs scored in the AA South. Then there was Austin Hendrick, who we are familiar with. Overall solid year, 775 OPS, 13 home runs, 25 doubles, 16 swiped bags. Then there's Jay Allen, also we are familiar with him, and another solid season, 772 OPS, 32 doubles, and 16 steals. Matt Mcclain, though, has been very, very disappointing here. Back-to-back seasons of just plain awful hitting for us with the Chattanooga Lookouts. Another sub 700 OPS. His potential has actually dropped down from an A to a B. That's how bad he's been in back-to-back seasons, that they were just like, hey, you're not an A potential anymore. So obviously not the best development for his chances of being like a, everyday player for us in the big leagues, but he still is a B potential. He's still, I think he's like 24, 25. I think he makes 25 next season, maybe. He might even be younger than that. I don't know the exact date. I don't have it in front of me right now. But still a B potential, still has the positional versatility. He's still got some wheels a little bit. He can still play multiple positions at a high level. He just has one season and he's all of a sudden back to being a decent prospect. Obviously won't have an A potential, but I mean, he's still valuable to keep around. It's not like I'm looking at him as a guy who's a total failure at this point. He could just be taking a weird path to being a good player. But I mean, if he comes out next season and is just god-awful next year, then I'll start to be like, okay, this guy, maybe not really anybody. Then there was Trey Sweeney, who didn't really put up the best numbers in AA this season. He might be getting a prospect profile in next season as well, so we won't be diving too in-depth on him. We'll just have to see how it plays out, and once I prioritize who needs prospect profiles and who doesn't, because we do have a lot of B potential guys in the system heading into next season. And then there was Ellie De La Cruz. He was having a fantastic season in AA, 802 OPS and 279 ABs. It just, unfortunately, he got hurt, so he was not able to finish his AA season. But in the time that he did play, he was able to add a +5 boost to his contact versus right-handed pitching, as well as get a solid boost to his plate skills and defensive ratings as well. I don't know if he starts next season in the big leagues, but he'll probably be up in Cincinnati at some point in 2024, Season 3 if I had to guess. Basically, he is not far away from the major leagues at all. And then, like I said, in the actual game, there is Adrian Mercer, one of the most interesting guys we have in the entire organization, if you ask me. He's only a C potential, but he is a fantastic C potential player. Only had 150 ABs in AA this season, but he absolutely tore it up. A 993 OPS, already 9 doubles, 6 triples. He led AA South in triples in only 150 ABs. 14 steals already, walking just as much as he's striking out. He was actually our second-round pick in last year's first-year player entry draft. He's got a 77, 84 contact respectively. Already very good plate skills, not much power, but I mean, that's not his game. He's very, very good at everything else. Has a 75 fielding, 68 reaction. Bit of a noodle arm, so not the most ideal center fielder, but can play there. 69 speed with 86 steal rating. He is exactly what we want in this organization. He could absolutely be in the bigs next season as well. Now if we move on to the pitching side of things, there is Landon Marceau, who we acquired from the Angels at the deadline. He is a third-round pick out of the Louisiana State University in 2021 for them. He's been very good in Double-A, mid-3 ERA and FIP, and 142 and 2/3 innings pitched. Not a big strikeout guy, but limits walks and hits very well. And you may see that he is 6'9" in game. That is because whoever made these it's the OSFM rosters, but I don't know who specifically worked on the Angels players, but they just made a mistake. He's 6'9". He's actually 6 foot in real life. I will be changing that. It just, surprise, surprise, I do record these videos ahead of me posting them. It's just easier. I'm not recording a ton of footage and then rushing to edit it all on the same day. I have video footage stockpiled in my folders that I go and edit when I have to edit them. So you may see a couple episodes where he is still listed at 6'9", but as of right now, as I'm recording this, I will be going and changing his height. Then there was Alec Willis, who has been fantastic this season in Double-A as well. We got him last season as just a kind of a super young guy that we got in return for Hunter Strickland and Justin Wilson being sent to the Cardinals at the deadline. Barely played in Double-A last season, but this year he's got a 3.47 ERA, a 3.27 FIP, and 142 innings pitched, 138 strikeouts. Still only 20 years old. Pretty solid ratings boost to his hits per 9 and walks per 9 this season. Definitely a solid C potential player to have in the system. And like I said, still 20 years old, so who knows what he could be like 2-3 years from now. Then there was Chase Petty, who will be getting a prospect profile early next season, so we're not going to be going too in-depth on him, but it is worth mentioning that he was very good in Double-A this season, struck out a ton of guys. That was mainly what he was very good at, a 10K per 9. He was 4th in the Double-A South in strikeouts. Not the best ERA and FIP, but also not bad either. Very, very serviceable. I think they were both high 3, low 4 sort of stuff. Now on to Logan Allen, who was another starter with a solid season in Double-A for us, mid-3 ERA and FIP. We could see him very early in MLB next season. He might even be on the opening day roster. We will have to see how things pan out. And then there was Peyton Battenfield, who was signed this previous offseason. Cleveland did not bring him back in their organization, so we took him off their hands because he was just sitting there in free agency. 25-year-old right-handed pitcher. He was taken in the 9th round by Houston in the 2019 draft at Oklahoma State. He actually spent the season moving between the rotation and the bullpen, just back and forth, and he was very good in both roles. Mid-3 ERA and FIP at 134 and 2/3 innings. Another guy who really doesn't strike out a ton of hitters, but he is a solid all-around pitcher. And now on to arguably our best starter at the Double-A level this season in Jarrett Ross. He was a 3rd-round pick in 2022 for us. He had a 2.01 ERA, a 3.05 FIP in 130 innings. I did actually call him up to AAA at some point because he was dominating Double-A so much, but he was getting lit up at AAA, so I just figured I would send him back to the Double-A and make sure we have him dominating down there and developing the rest of the season. And he managed to lead the Double-A South in ERA this season. He could pitch in the big leagues right now if we really wanted to, just with his ratings are. But he is also another option who we could have for the big league club in 2024. And another guy like that is Devin Foster, who you saw in the video. Unfortunately, he did give up the game-winning hit to Cade Bunnell in the video, but he is a guy who is absolutely somebody we are going to be seeing a lot of. He was our 5th-round pick last season. He's been fantastic as the closer in Double-A this season, currently leading the league in saves with, I think, two-ish series left to play in the year. throws an extremely hard fastball, sits around 98 to 100 miles an hour. His cutter is also very hard, sits in the high 90s, and then he has a low 90s splitter. Those are his three main pitches. He does also have a sweeping curve, but it's not the most, doesn't have the most break on it. He can get guys to swing and miss on it, but he's more so the blow it by you type and has the splitter and the cutter with some motion on it. He's also got a very, very solid K per 9, walk per 9, and home run per 9 ratings, and then he got a +5 boost to his hit per 9 ratings this year. So like I said, definitely a guy that we'll be seeing a lot of. He could potentially be on the opening day roster next season. But then a couple other guys here pitching in Double-A. We've got Eric Ryder, who we got from San Diego in the James Paxton deal. Only 46 1/3 innings pitched for him. He was fine, nothing too special, but he might be getting a prospect profile at some point because he is a potential guy. So once again, I'll have to see how things pan out. And if maybe next season I think that he's not a guy who really needs a prospect profile, we'll show his ratings in an MLB in a minor league update next season. But as of right now, we're not going to go too in depth on him. Then there was Ethan Lindau, who was the guy we picked up from Philadelphia in the John Birdie trade. They had him in Class A for whatever reason, so he only has 12 1/3 innings pitched in Double-A. Lefty, C potential guy, solid hit per 9, solid K per 9. We'll see how he's looking after a full season of production in the minors next year. Now it's time to take a look at the AAA club, the Louisville Bats, as they're going to be playing host to Pittsburgh's AAA team in Indianapolis. So we'll take a look here. The starter on the day for Louisville is going to be left-hander Tanner Tully, making his 29th start. Take a look at the Bats lineup listed at 1-2-9 on the day. We'll start things off top after the second inning as Caraquetto, the old friend on last year's AAA team, is going to ground one over to Cody Hosey at third, and that's going to get past him. So it's an infield single for Caraquetto, and then it would bring up Frazier, who grounds one over to third base. Fegan has some trouble with it, but does recover to get the runner at first, but Caraquetto moves up to second base with one out, and then it would be White who goes down looking. He's a pair of shoes up there, and then it would bring up Andy Rodriguez, I believe that was. I was trying to read the name, who also goes down looking. Back-to-back Ks for Tanner Tully. Top of the fifth now as we move things along, and it is Rodriguez at the dish again. This time he does connect on a ball that's going to go into the left center field gap, and the Louisville Bats outfield defense, which has been not great this season, shows off there. A bit slow getting to that ball, but then Tanner Tully clutches up. He strikes out Bay and then Hernacia back-to-back to pick up quick 2 outs, and then would get out of the inning as Wyatt Matheson comes up, and he's just going to fly a ball into right field as that's going to be put away for out number 3. We now move things on to the bottom of the 7th, where Yvonne Johnson, the former Georgia infielder, is going to power one into the left center field gap. That's going to be a 2-bagger to keep the inning alive, but unfortunately, the Bats would not be able to drive him in as Aleo Lopez just grounds at the shortstop here, and that would be the end of the inning as the 0-0 game continues. Steven Valadez comes on here for the Bats. In the 8th, the Submariner himself is going to get a fly ball to right field here, and the outfield defense shows up again. Unable to make the catch in right field. That's going to be a double for Matheson, and then a ball in the dirt gets away from Colesbury as that allows Matheson to move up to third base, and then Madri is just going to hit one to deep right field. That'll be enough to tag up Matheson from third base, and the Indianapolis Ball Club takes the lead here 1-0 on a sac fly. So now we move things on. Top of the 9th, Kyle Funkhauser, the closer, former Louisville Cardinal, now pitching for the Louisville Bats, getting the nod here in the 9th. Starts things off by striking out old friend Caraquetto for the first out, and then it would be Frazier going down after him, both going down swinging, and then Funkhauser gets a little dribbler here from White back to himself, and he makes the out. 1-2-3 inning for Kyle Funkhauser. Move things on, bottom of the 9th, as Austin Bryce came on for Indianapolis, looking to close things out. Has not blown a save all season, and it doesn't look like he's going to do that here. Cody Hosey fly out to right field for the first out. Isaiah Gilliam chopper back to the pitcher for out number 2. And then it would be down to Johnny Fegan, the first baseman, who just grounds one over to shortstop. A 1-2-3 inning for Austin Bryce as he remains perfect in the save category as Indianapolis takes this game here on the road over the Louisville Bats by a score of 1-0. A sac fly was the only run of the day, but that was all it took. 7 hits for Indianapolis and 4 for Louisville. Indianapolis' starter on the day, Anthony Solometto, was the player of the game. He went 7 2/3, only gave up 4 hits and no runs on the day. Basically, the only notable hit on the day for Louisville was Avon Johnson. And then Ronnie Dawson went 2 for 4 with 2 singles on the day as well. But now it's time to take a look at some of our players down in AAA and see how they did on their seasons. Starting things off with the bats on the bats is Isaiah Gilliam, who was one of the best bats on the bats. 7.51 OPS, 16 home runs, 25 doubles, and 15 steals. Just an all-around good bat to have in AAA. I doubt he's ever more than like a 4th outfielder depth guy, but he is a solid one to have at the AAA level to be called up if we ever need him. Now moving on to Cody Hosey, who was signed in the offseason. I know how to pronounce his name because I am a sicko who follows college baseball, and I remember when he was at Tulane being a shortstop and just hitting tanks for the Green Wave, who have one of the best color schemes in sports. He was okay for us. Not the best, not the greatest. 15 bombs, though, 24 doubles. He has some good contact power, not great plate skills, but he is probably a guy I'm going to keep around as I see potential, just for some organizational depth if we ever possibly really ever need him. Who knows, maybe he has a good season next year. Who knows what could happen. Then there was Mark Colesberry, who, if you remember from last season, he was surprisingly good in limited time in the big leagues. Tyler Stevenson missed some time last year, and he was the guy who got the nod at catcher when he was out, and he was pretty good in the big leagues in those ABs. And he was really solid in AAA this year as well. Once again, probably never a guy who's going to start every day. He's never going to be like the catcher on a Major League team, but he could absolutely be our backup catcher at some point. And then there was Ronnie Dawson, who put up another solid year of production with AAA Louisville, a 7.99 OPS. He did miss some time this season, so he only had 243 ABs. Very similar player to Isaiah Gilliam, but also definitely a useful player to have around. Then there's Jonas Cespedes' younger brother, who was just straight up awful. We got him from the White Sox last year in the Mike Minor trade. It was like him and Cade McClure. I don't believe we got anybody else in that deal. And it's looking like both those guys really aren't going to be anything for us. But Alan Cerda is a guy who I like quite a lot. He was very good in AA last season, and he was very good in AA this season, so he actually got promoted to AAA. 199 ABs so far in AAA, 806 OPS, has gotten a +5 to both contact sides and his plate discipline. Not too different than Dawson and Gilliam, but he is much younger, has more upside. He's got a little bit better contact than those guys. Honestly, I could see Alan Cerda being a very solid 4th outfielder for us at the big league level. We have a lot of talent at the outfield position. Lots of guys that can play different positions in the outfield, just lots of guys who could come up and immediately play a role in the big leagues right now. Obviously, that means it's quite a bit of a logjam, but it's a good issue to have. You know, depth is never a bad thing. And for those of you who have watched these series over the years, you know that I tend to stockpile a lot of talent in the minor league systems, keep guys around probably a little bit too long. But at the end of the day, it's never a bad thing in MLB The Show to have talent throughout your organization. Now we move things on to Johnny Fegan, who only got 48 ABs in AAA, but he has been great this season in those 48 ABs. He is a guy who will be getting a prospect profile very early on next season, so we will be able to see more about him. But now moving on to the pitching side of things, there was LJ Newsome, who spent the year moving between the rotation and the bullpen, and for those of you who did watch the Mariners OTP series that I did, he was actually a fun piece in a couple seasons of that. So I thought it would be fun to have him in this series, just in AAA, see if he was able to do anything, but he's a deep potential, so I doubt he's back for next season. Tanner Tully, just like Newsom, is a guy I signed in the offseason. 26th round pick by Cleveland in 2016 out of Ohio State. I swear I'm not actually going out and trying to hunt guys that are from like Kentucky and Ohio. It seems like I'm getting a lot of guys from Ohio and Kentucky, but I promise I'm not looking specifically for guys from those states. It literally, like, it just happens to where I'm like, oh wow, this guy's local. I swear I'm not hunting these guys out. But anyways, Tully was quite solid in AAA for us this season. He's 28 years old, so probably just depth at starting pitching, but he could be a solid 5th starter if we ever need him to be that. And I'll probably bring him back next season since he has the potential just to have as a guy who can be a good AAA starter, because I do tend to prefer guys like him in AAA as opposed to AA, or guys who I want to be just dominating competition down there and getting as much development in as possible. Robert Duggar was a guy who just was not great in the big leagues or AAA this season. Not really much more to say about him. Cade McClure, though, like I hinted, he was acquired in the Mike Minor trade last season. He was fine in AAA in limited time. He was fine in AA. I doubt he's ever really going to be anything. He's nothing special. He was just kind of a seek potential guy because there wasn't really that much trade value in Mike Minor. Kyle Funkhauser, though, is a guy who I do like. We signed him in the offseason. He was actually a 4th round pick by Detroit in 2016 out of Louisville. Like I said in the video, he did pitch for the Louisville Cardinals, and now he's pitching for the Louisville Bats. Once again, I swear I did not mean to do that. I totally forgot that he was a Louisville Cardinal. I knew that about him, but it just kind of slipped my mind when I did sign him, and I remembered after I signed him in the offseason. But I swear I'm not hunting out these guys out and trying to do that. I do think it's cool when guys do that, but I swear I'm not like specifically only trying to sign guys from Ohio and Kentucky. I do listen to a lot of country music that comes out of Kentucky, but I swear I'm not doing this. I'm not trying to be like a Kentucky guy sort of thing. But anyways, Funkhauser was very solid in the bullpen for us this year. Probably going to bring him back as well just to have his depth in the bullpen, because that's obviously a spot where you need a lot of depth. And then there was Steven Valenes, who you saw in the game, who did unfortunately get the loss in the game, but he is a guy who we signed in the offseason. He was a 10th round pick out of Kansas in 2017, and he is a submariner, as you saw. He had a very good season this year in AAA, also probably going to bring him back this year. It would be cool to have a productive submariner in the bullpen. In the Giants series, we had Tyler Rogers, but this was when Tyler Rogers was not in the big leagues yet in real life, and he was just kind of a guy that was in our system and very, very underrated in that series, so he never really turned out to be anything. So, you know, I think it'd be cool to have a submariner. Submariners are cool. That's a confirmed Jersey-born fact. Submariners are cool. But with that being said, that is going to wrap things up here for this edition of the Cincinnati Reds franchise here on MLB The Show 22, the minor league update here in 2023. I've been your host, Jersey-born, and I am saying, Northeast baseball, baby, let's go UConn!